Hello, everyone, and welcome to a discussion on how abolitionists frame the slave narrative, specifically the paratext of Harriet Jacobs' Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. So, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl was one of the first actual slave narratives that was written by a woman. And as you can see here, it says written by herself, which means it was written by Harriet Jacobs under the pseudonym Linda Brent, which is her pseudonym within the text. The first thing we also need to know about what we're going to be talking about is what is paratext. So, paratext includes epigraphs, dedications, prefaces, and other bookish elements that always serve and only ought to serve its text by getting the text read properly according to the author's designs. That comes from Beth A. McCoy in a text that we actually read for class this semester. So Lydia Maria Child was the editor and really the person who pushed the Incidents of a Life of a Slave Girl text out there. She had a little bit of ulterior motives that we're going to talk about here in just a few moments, but I just want to have you put a face to the name. So Lydia Maria Child was a famous writer and editor, and she knew that slave narratives would be great at marketing towards white women, and specifically Jacob's text in particular, because it talked about the sexual harassment that she underwent. So reading in the antebellum period was really defined as a female enterprise, and that's because women would read so many texts and they would be able to influence their husbands and children based on what they read. So that's why they were such a key market for abolitionists, specifically why Child, a abolitionist and women's right movement participant, were so involved in pushing incidents out there for white women to read. So we can see this on the title page. There's two quotes that really are rallying cries for women to come in and be a part of the abolitionist movement. Those quotes were input by Child very clearly because, as you can see from reading them, they make the point that white women specifically need to rise up and be a part of the abolitionist movement. There was also a review in the abolitionist newspaper, The Liberator, by William C. Nell, and it talks about, in about one sentence, how good Harriet Jacobs' text is, but then he spends a whole paragraph really building up and praising Lydia Maria Child and Amy Post, who wrote a letter in the appendix, and their work on the project. So you can see that even in these abolitionist newspapers, they are more focused on driving the movement than they are about actually giving authorial agency to Harriet Jacobs and the story that she's trying to tell. So readers could have read that review in The Liberator, and they also could have read an advertisement placed in the 1830s by Harriet Jacobs' former owner. It describes her, it says her name, and you could maybe put two and two together from reading Jacob's text and this Norcom advertisement and say, I think that this is the same woman, which would inform a little bit of that underlying white supremacy that really fueled Maria Child, that really fueled Amy Post and the abolitionists, because what they were fighting for was freedom for African Americans, but not necessarily equality for them. So we can see this here when we're talking about the truth of the text. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more on the next slide, but as McCoy states here, people believed that fugitives, specifically fugitive slaves, were incapable of telling the truth. And so these white editors had to, claim that their writers were telling the truth. And here in red, we have a preface by the author, introduction by the editor, and an appendix by Amy Post. All three people, one the author, a black woman, and the two from the white women, all underlined in red, stating the truth of this narrative. Nothing makes that more clear. However, as you can see, as I've underlined in blue, Lydia Maria Child says, yes, this narrative is truthful, but at the same time, take it with a grain of salt. That kind of furthers that notion of freedom, but not equity. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. I'm happy to answer anything, elaborate on anything else, and I hope you have a great rest of your summer.